my name is Joel. Welcome to my channel, In Defiance of Limits. Now, I decided to start this channel as I wanted to help people basically. I want to help people. This is going to be really real and authentic and raw. It's going to be completely unedited, this first episode. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break out my life story, break it down into 2 episodes. It's going to be a 2-part series. So the first episode is going to be basically my childhood, growing up, and the event the catalyst basically that made me fall from who I was down into my absolute lowest state of being, and the path that I took, you know, some really, really low places and low states that I've been, the absolute rock bottom. Like I was completely off the rails. I was literally a train wreck. And it's going to be really hard for me to talk about this because I've never openly shared this, the whole story with anyone before. So now I'm coming out and publicly sharing it with everyone. And the second episode is going to be basically coming out all of that, overcoming all of that, and all the things that I've done and where I'm going in the future. So yeah, in saying all that, this is going to be difficult for me too because I'm not used to being on camera and being on film, and I've got a little bit of a script to follow just to make sure that I don't get too off track and too off topic. But yeah, hopefully this is able to just flow well, and it's going to be everything that I want it to be. And yeah, I'm really glad to be doing this and glad to be sharing it with you all. And I really hope that this helps someone. So basically, I decided to share my life story in order to help people. I want to show people that I'm literally living, breathing proof that no matter what adversity you go through in life and what struggles you go through in life, you can overcome that, and you can actually turn your greatest adversities into your greatest strengths. So that's what this is all about. Everything I've been through has given me a lot of knowledge and wisdom, and I wouldn't change a thing. I literally wouldn't change anything. It's been very difficult. I've lived many different lives, and I've learned a lot of really tough, valuable life lessons. And it's okay. Like, it's okay to make mistakes, as long as you don't keep making the same mistakes. You don't want to keep revisiting those same mistakes. So it's okay to have mistakes in life as long as you learn from them. That's the key. What did you learn? Yeah, and like everything I've experienced has made me unbelievably strong, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And if I hadn't have gone through all the stuff that I've gone through, I wouldn't be the person I am today, and I wouldn't be as strong mentally, physically, and spiritually as strong I am today, and I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't be where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm going. I know what path I'm on now. I know who I am, and I know exactly where I'm going. I know where my path leads, and it's just amazing. Like, what's in store for me, I can't wait. Like, all I want to do is just continue walking this path and just show people that you can do it. You know what I mean? You know, every single pain, adversity, or struggle that you've felt, you can actually transmute all of that and turn a negative into a positive. So you can become the alchemist of your life. Like, I was in my absolute lowest state of being, which is like the base metal, which is lead, and I've transmuted all of that and turned lead into gold. So that's the idea. And there's a saying that I always like to refer back to from a book that I've read, and that saying is, the master transmutes that which is undesirable into that which is worthy by vibrating on a higher plane, and thus triumphs. So I'll say that again. The master transmutes that which is undesirable into that which is worthy by vibrating on a higher plane, and thus triumphs. Now, I know for a fact I was never meant to follow a normal path. Like, a normal path was just not for me. And I was destined for more, but I had to suffer immensely in order to get to where I am now and to get to the position and the place and the mentality that I'm in now. And if you feel like the normal path isn't for you, let me tell you that, like, there is another way. There is another path that you can take. You don't have to follow the normal path that society demands of you. And in fact, to me, like, the normal path and the normal way of life and following that sort of the societal norm, that's the most terrifying depressing thing that I can possibly imagine for me. And that's like that is one of my greatest struggles too. Just like kind of understanding that there was another path for me. Like my path was different to the normal path. And yeah, just want to teach you everything that I've learned. You can create your own path. And now my life's entire mission is to live my life in defiance of limits. Okay, so now that I've got that intro there, so I'll start off with my childhood, and we'll just start off from the very beginning. So I've got a script here. If I get too far off track, I may just refer back to it. So basically, I was born in Camperdown, and in 1992 in Sydney, Australia, and growing up was, yeah, like I had a pretty good childhood. My dad was a really hard worker, started his own business, installing and selling commercial catering equipment. And my mum was pretty much just looked after us kids. Like I had an older sister, 4 years older than me, and I've got a younger brother who's 18 months younger than me. And yeah, nothing I can really think of that was like traumatic or anything like that as growing up as a child. We grew up in Marrickville, moved from Marrickville when I was about 4 or 5, I think, to Annandale, and then grew up in Annandale most of my life. And I went to Annandale North Public School. Yeah, I'm just trying to think if like there's anything I can add about that. Yeah, as I said, this is all like completely just off the top of my head, just raw, unedited. I haven't had a lot of time to really practice a script, so you're just gonna have to bear with me sometimes when I'm just going through this and sort of thinking about it. Yeah, so basically, if you were to ask like my mum or dad from a young age, I was like probably a very strong-willed and stubborn child. They would definitely like to say I was stubborn. Like I was the sort of kid that if I was on a certain trajectory or path to try and get something, whatever it is, like a toy or something like that, and that was interrupted and someone grabbed me or stopped me, that would literally be the end of the world until they could find what I was trying to actually go for and put me down and be like, oh, okay, that's what he was going for, and then I would start to settle down. So yeah, even from a young age, you could say that I was very strong-willed, strong-minded, and that was just inherently part of my nature. And yeah, so growing up, like I had a good childhood. We didn't have heaps of money, but my dad really worked really, really hard in order to provide for us, starting his business, and he just killed himself, literally just killed himself with work. He was almost always at work running his business, trying to provide for his wife and his 3 kids, and I'm really grateful for that. Really grateful for everything that he did and everything that he was able to provide us. And yeah, I didn't appreciate that sort of stuff at the time, but now when I've gotten to the age I am now, I'm 33 now, yeah, I'm just really, really grateful. Really grateful for the way that my mum and dad raised me. They taught me, yeah, they just instilled a lot of valuable lessons and just a good mentality, good discipline. I was raised as a Christian, and yeah, I wouldn't change anything about my childhood. So yeah, basically, I was a pretty good kid, like going to Annandale North Public School. Actually, there was a couple of instances where I did some naughty things at school. Like one time I took a knife to school and got suspended for a few days because of that. Yeah, apart from that, actually I lit a fire in the boys' bathroom. I think I was in like kindergarten or year 1, because obviously we must have gone on a family camping trip, and I just thought I was obviously watching my dad with the fire and stuff, and thought it would be cool to show all my friends in the bathroom. And yeah, lit a fire, got in big trouble for that, and the principal at the time actually stood me in front of the school and pretty much publicly named and shamed me for doing that. Now my mum seems to think that like may have been a potential trauma in my past, but honestly I don't think it's a big deal. So yeah, that's like, there's not much else. I could go really deep into my childhood and all the stuff and everything that we went through. and growing up. But like the main part of this is to try and show like what the actual turning point was in my life, like the thing that made me fall from where I was. And yeah, so we can kind of skip through primary school. So I went to Hunters Hill High School because mainly all my friends were going there, and my parents really didn't want to send me to Balmain High or Leichhardt High, which they had the worst reputations possible for public schools in the area. So they thought, okay, well, we'll send him to Hunters Hill High School, which is actually in quite a nice area. And most of my friends from my public school, my primary school, were going to Hunters Hill High as well. So it just made sense to go there. Now, like I always had just sort of this, not that I even understood it at the time, but I always had this just feeling that like I wasn't meant to follow this path. Like I couldn't really understand it or grasp that at the time, but now it makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, just going to high school, so it started off in year 7, I just never felt like that this was for me, you know what I mean? It just didn't feel quite right to me. It didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. You know, I still had friends and everything. Everything was like pretty good in year 7 and year 8, and went to school, got good marks in school, all the rest of it. And it wasn't until I got to basically, I think it was probably when I was like 14. Yeah, 14 I want to say. This was like the turning point. This was the moment, the catalyst that changed everything. So it's a little bit hard for me to talk to because I've basically got to put myself in a really, really vulnerable position. And I've probably only literally told 1 or 2, maybe 3 people about this actual situation. So what happened was basically there was a video on my phone, a private video of myself, and I was in class at the time and my phone must have fallen out of my pocket. And someone picked up my phone, went through my phone, basically looked at the video and sent the video to everyone. So the video went everywhere, all around the school. I'm not going to go into the details of what was in the video, but I'm sure you can imagine. And all I can say was it was extremely embarrassing, and just the amount of shame and embarrassment that I felt at the time, like it's just like I can just feel it in my stomach, like that, just pure shame and embarrassment. And I wasn't equipped with the tools at the time to deal with that. You know, like I was only 14 years old. I wasn't equipped with the tools to deal with it at the time. And I think eventually I ended up getting my phone back off the guy that found it at the school bus stop like a couple of hours later, but it was too late then. It had already gone all around the school. And that was like the defining moment, like the line in the sand. Like from that moment onwards, I stopped going to school. Yeah, I basically stopped going to school. I couldn't face the fear. I couldn't face the shame and the embarrassment of this. And I just started to retreat, like deeply. I just retreated deep into myself to try and escape this like pain. And yeah, basically I stopped going to school, and my parents had literally no idea what was going on at the time. They obviously knew something was up, but they had no idea what was wrong with me. And because I never told them about it. I never told anyone about it. And basically I was just completely derailed. The system had failed me, you know. I'd just been completely derailed, off my track now, and I stopped going to school. And I honestly didn't go to school for a few months after that. And if I did go to school, it would just be to go sign in and then I would leave immediately. Now, eventually, I did return to school. I think it was, probably like year 9. So I was like, 14, going on 15. I started to go back to school, but I never went to class. I never went back to class. Like that old me was gone. The old me was dead. Now, when I returned to school, I created a shield. So in order to protect myself, I started to hang around like the bad kids at school, the lads, as we like to call them. If anyone knows what a lad is, like, that's just like just a criminal, really. So I started to hang around the really bad kids, and yeah, um, created this new identity that, the lad, the criminal, the gangster. Because now, uh, now you couldn't touch me. You know what I mean? I created this like to protect myself. You couldn't touch me now. You couldn't say anything to me because there was a lot of bullying that happened before this. Like, and maybe, you know what? I don't blame people at the time because they would have had, they're just kids. They're 14-year-old kids. They have no idea of the ramifications and the consequences of their actions of doing this sort of stuff. And they probably didn't even mean it, to try and damage me the way it did. But it caused a lot of damage. And, I'm not coming out as a victim. Like, I wouldn't change anything that happened to me. I'm really grateful for it because I wouldn't be the person I am today if it hadn't have happened. But yeah, basically, there was a lot of bullying online, so I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape the bullying, so I became this lad, this gangster, this criminal. And if you wouldn't say anything to me now, because I would bash you. If you were going to say anything to me now, there would be the threat of violence. So I started to get into fights and all that sort of stuff, like a lot of violence, a lot of fights, started doing drugs. So I basically started smoking weed. Yes, around that time. Can't exactly recall the exact age, but around 14, 15. I wasn't going to school. And when I did go to school, I would just sign in only to just leave and meet up with the other lads that were at school. And basically started hanging around like the housing commission flats in Lilyfield and just smoking a massive amount of weed, drinking alcohol, like to absolute excess, and the sort of mind frame that I was in at the time, a young mind like this that's gone through this sort of thing that is not equipped to deal with this sort of thing, and then you add drugs and alcohol on top of that, it's absolutely a recipe for disaster. My mind was just completely fractured at the time, and yeah, I basically had no direction, and I wanted to basically die at the time. I wanted to die. I didn't want to be here. I was extremely depressed, and I just didn't want to be part of this system. And yeah, as I said, I went back to school eventually, and I just wanted to be like the baddest criminal out there. I was so angry at the world and angry at the system. And it was just like, I just wanted to be just like a big F you to the world, F you to the system, and to just like inflict as much pain and damage as I possibly could on the world, because that's the sort of pain and damage that I was feeling. And like, I didn't know this at the time, but these are all of the sort of lessons and understanding that I've come through like a lot of work, a lot of internal work over the years, and seeing a therapist, a lot of meditation, all the training and all this sort of stuff I can get into later on. But yeah, I just basically wanted to be the baddest criminal out there. And yeah, so I started hanging around all these sort of people, and the people I first started meeting at school, and then it just escalated from there. I met more people from different areas, worse people. We started like a gang, a lot of sort of big gang warfare, gang fights. Like I can remember specifically one time where there was like literally probably 1 to 150, like all people in gangs like against gonna fight each other, and it's just like insane, like to see this kind of other side of the coin that no one sees. You know what I mean? No one sees this sort of things that are living like a normal sort of path, a normal life, and I was like way out there on the fringe, like witnessing and being a part of this sort of stuff. It's just really, really crazy. You're really crazy that I experienced this sort of stuff. And yeah, the more I started hanging around these sort of people, and I started like to get involved with crime, like all sorts of crime. And I just, like, people would know the term, like in Sydney, a searcher. Like, so I wanted to be just the baddest searcher you could possibly hear of. I was obsessed with this reputation. Like, I wanted to just be the baddest criminal, the baddest searcher, the baddest lad. I was stealing cars, stealing cars, breaking into houses, all sorts of crime, graffitiing. I wanted to get my name, my graffiti name up everywhere, all over Sydney, to be seen and heard, so people would know about me and hear about my reputation. And I started to end up like having beef basically with a lot of people. Like to the point where there was people out there that literally wanted to shoot me and stab me on sight if they saw me. And my mind at the time that I was and I was smoking like a massive amount of weed, an insane amount of weed, and like knowing, literally walking around the streets, being stoned off your head, and knowing that if you see this person, they're going to stab you or shoot you, or bash you or jump you on sight. It literally, it was not good for my mind to put myself into a complete state of paranoia. I was extremely paranoid, like for good reason. You know, there was genuinely people out there that wanted to kill me. And yeah, so that was around the age of like 15, 16. And I just continued doing drugs, like a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol. Like, I can't even describe the amount of drugs that I did and the amount of alcohol that I drank, like pretty much every single day, right? This is an everyday occurrence. Drink myself absolutely stupid, smoke as much weed as you can possibly imagine, to the point where I'd just be blackout drunk and just blacked out every single day. It's like a lot of it is quite a blur. And yeah, so that was around 16 or so. And I started to get charged by the police. So eventually all of this sort of stuff caught up to me. And I started to get charged by the police, and I'm going to court on bail, all that sort of stuff. And like, that didn't stop me at all. In fact, when I started to get charged and I was on bail, some of the strictest bail conditions that I ever had was where I was on a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that means that I've got to be at home between the hours of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I had to report to the police station every single day. And that was around like 16 or so, I want to say. And that didn't stop me at all. In fact, that actually gave me even more reason to defy that. Like, I was so against this system that had failed me, that you want to try and tell me that I can't leave my house between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It just fuels the crime sprees even more. You know, the police would be coming to check on me like 2 or 3 times a night. That didn't stop me. Like, as soon as they would come and check on me, I'd just be straight out of the house. I'd be out of the house, out literally running amok, stealing cars, all this sort of stuff. Just going on absolute crime sprees. You know, we'd get a stolen car. I don't want to go into too much details so I don't incriminate myself. But yeah, basically just an unbelievable amount of crime. Because I just wanted to be the baddest. Yeah, I was in pain and I was suffering and struggling. And yeah, the only thing I regret from all of that sort of stuff that I did is people that I hurt. You know, that's all I can say. I don't regret anything else that's made me who I am today, but I regret people that I may have hurt along the way. Yeah, so that was around 16 or so. And then basically, because I had beef with all these people, in like heaps of different areas, I had beef with people. I couldn't even go through these areas, otherwise I'd be stabbed or bashed or even shot potentially. Had a couple of my cars blown up, stuff like that. Targeted attacks. So I started hanging around town hall, where I met, like, that was even worse. I met a lot of like just absolute people that are absolutely lost, really, really lost in life. The same sort of people as me, just completely lost in life. And so I was hanging around these sort of people that are even lower than the people that I've already been hanging around. And everything just revolved around just like getting completely off your face, you know, just doing as much drugs as you can possibly imagine, drinking. And then I can't remember who, actually I can remember the person, but I'm not going to name them, introduced me and a few other people into like inhaling butane and Rexona. And like, this is just like, I don't know how it's possible that my brain is not severely damaged from all this sort of stuff I've done, but it just goes to show like how resilient the human body is and the mind is. Now, yeah, that was around like say 16, 17. And we were inhaling, my absolute lowest point was I'd be inhaling butane every single day, straight from the can. And, you know, we'd be inhaling butane at town hall steps, or we'd get on trains and we'd catch a train from like town hall all the way to Campbelltown, which is a long train ride. And we'd just inhale butane the whole way, just on the carriage. Like, we didn't care who was watching or who was seeing that. just anything to just escape reality and escape the pain that I was feeling. And yeah, that's like a real blur during that time while I was doing all that sort of stuff, inhaling butane, drinking to be like absolute blackout drunk every single day. And I'd often wake up in a police station the next morning after, coming down from drugs or alcohol and have no idea what I've done, no idea. And then they'd be saying, oh, you've done this or you've done that. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I couldn't remember what I'd done the night before, like some really horrific stuff. And it's like almost like I was like possessed, while I was in these blackout states, because I just couldn't believe that I'd done some of the things that I'd done. Anyway, so yeah, that's probably going on about like 17, something like that. And yeah, just still like lots of crime and, being on curfew, stuff like that. Not that it ever stopped me. Constantly going to court for different charges, going to juvie. I never did a long amount of time in juvie. I don't know how, but I managed to avoid that. And when you're under 18, like a lot of the times they just kind of give you a slap on the wrist, which, people have their own opinion on that, but that's the reality. Like I just got off. I got off a lot of charges, and you'd have to do like community service, or you'd go to juvenile justice, then go and speak to someone, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I did a couple of short stints at juvie. And one time I remember, around 17 or so, I was literally on the run for a year. Like I had warrants out for my arrest, and I was on the run for a whole year. And I couldn't care less that there was like police looking for me. They'd be checking at my parents' house all the time. And I got put on a list, which is HRO, which is basically high risk offender. It means that you have a very high risk of reoffending. And that's like an absolute fact. I was offending every single day. Like that was like my life's mission. Like how many times can I offend every day? Like how many crimes can I do? I was just obsessed with it. I was becoming this, bad lad, this bad criminal, and I just wanted to be the baddest. And where was I going with that? So yeah, I was on the run for like a year and just living at mates' houses and stuff like that. Hadn't spoken to my parents, for probably months at a time. And if I ever did see them in the street or something, my mum would try and grab me and hug me and be like, okay, just had a little break there. So just picking up from where I left off, I was about 17. Yep, still drinking, still doing drugs, all of this stuff, a lot of crime. Entered into a really toxic relationship. I'm not going to give the person the satisfaction, about talking too much about that, but let's just say it was a really, really toxic relationship and there was a lot of cheating involved. Anyway, so yeah, I'm still drinking and I think I got stabbed. So I was out drinking somewhere, got stabbed by someone. And yeah, that was around 17, going on maybe 18. I think I just turned 18 actually. I just turned 18. So I've been stabbed. I was like losing a lot of blood, really just delirious at the time. And I was like, just completely messed up. Yeah, messed up. I was really messed up on alcohol, losing a lot of blood. And then my girlfriend at the time called the ambulance because she was worried I was going to die. And basically the whole of the Leichhardt local area command rocked up. It was in somewhere in Glebe, near Parramatta Road, near Broadway in Glebe. And basically the whole LAC rocked up, and because they heard, when she called the ambulance, a stabbing's mentioned. So that's why the whole police station rocked up. No ambulance came. The police came, like probably 30 of them, and they proceeded to bash me. They bashed me, and then I got charged with assaulting police, and I ended up beating that charge, so I got the charges dropped. And shortly after that, got charged again with robbery and company, and that was as an adult. I think I was like, I want to say I got charged as an adult for robbery and company, and I was looking at doing like 3 to 5 years, and that was a lengthy court battle, and that was kind of a massive wake-up call. During that time, I kind of stopped hanging around all the people I was hanging around, stopped drinking, started going to the gym, and eventually I actually got the charges dropped. So I got the charges dropped, um, managed to narrowly avoid going to jail for 3 to 5 years. And yeah, I was still in this toxic relationship at the time, but I was going to the gym. I stopped hanging around all the people that I was hanging around, stopped drinking, stopped doing drugs, all of this sort of stuff, and just basically focused on training. Um, and yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, just cut off all the bad people out of my life, just training. Ended up, yeah, so that was about a 3 to 4, about a 3 year, 3 or so year relationship, maybe 4 years, really toxic. Got out of that relationship and then entered into another relationship really shortly after because I obviously hadn't learned my lesson from the first one. And that's the thing with life, like you can learn these really tough lessons and you're destined to keep repeating. You're going to keep going through this stuff until you decide that you've had enough suffering. And when you've had enough suffering, then you probably don't have to learn that lesson again. But obviously, I hadn't learned from the first toxic relationship. So I entered into another relationship, really toxic one again. Ended up getting her accidentally pregnant. Now, I wouldn't change having my son at all. And I'm not going to talk about that relationship either because I don't want to give the person the satisfaction of it. But let's just say it was a really, really toxic relationship, unplanned pregnancy, and I started using steroids at the time. And obviously, using the steroids just became like another form of escape. So I was escaping this toxic relationship and just blasting steroids and just taking all that anger and frustration and energy out in the gym. And I would just go into the gym and I would just literally just unleash in there, unleash all this rage and fury that I was feeling at the time because of everything that I'd gone through and what I was going through right now with this toxic relationship and having an unplanned pregnancy. And anyway, I ended up getting out of that relationship, and I was still taking a lot of steroids. Like the amount of steroids that I was taking was just absolutely insane. And just like I just switched one addiction in the past, and yeah, I'd gone without alcohol and drugs for quite a few years now, but now I was back to it. Now I was addicted to steroids, and yeah, I ended up I'd go into the gym, and it didn't matter what weight I was on the bar, I would lift it no matter what. I was just like, and I was an absolute psychopath when it came to being in the gym. And I just had so much anger and rage to unleash in there and just channel that. And yeah, so I ended up going down a bit of a dark path with the steroids and yeah, entered into a good relationship at the time actually that I'm still currently in. So it's been about 8 years of that relationship. But yeah, during that time, the first early years of the relationship, I was just blasting the steroids. Like, yeah, the dosages that I've taken of that sort of stuff, like I should be dead. You know, I shouldn't be here. I should literally be dead or in jail. But miraculously, I'm still here. And yeah, it wasn't until kind of like just before COVID that I started to like kind of come off the steroids and just taper the dosages down, and kind of come out of that. And yeah, even though I wasn't drinking or doing drugs, I was doing steroids. But like, you know, I lived a really healthy lifestyle. All I did was eat, trained, slept and work. That's it. And you know, at this stage, I've cut every single person off from years ago. I don't talk to anyone. I'm just completely comfortable being on my own. And yeah, I got through that, got off all the steroids, and it wasn't until like 2020 actually. 2020 was like a real turning point in my life. That's where the rise starting happening. So like, you know, I've taken you on this journey from the fall and then the struggles I went through. And it wasn't until really I got to COVID in 2020 and I just had a lot of time for just deep reflection, just deep reflection and just meditation and just a lot of internal work, to try and like discover who I was and discover all of this stuff that I've been through, and just doing a lot of internal work really. It took a lot of work to get to where I am now, and I'm actually going to put that into another episode because this episode's going to end up being too long. But yeah, that was really the catalyst for change, was 2020, the first lockdown when I had all this time on my hands. to just research stuff, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of podcasts, did it like an insane amount of meditation. Like some days I was meditating up to 4 hours a day. And that's really when I had this like profound shift in my life. Like I was already on that path and I'd come a long way from the person that I was when I was like, when I just beat the charges the last time I got charged, like 19 years old or something like that. But I had a lot further to go to where I wanted to get to. But that was like really like the turning point, the pinnacle moment in that, like around 2020. And we'll talk about that in another episode. And thanks a lot for listening. And just one thing that I wanted to share with you that I like to think about a lot is if you look at a butterfly can't become a butterfly unless it goes through, it has to go through a process of transformation. So first it's a caterpillar. And then it forms a cocoon around its body. And then it goes into this cocoon and slowly but surely it transforms from this lower self into its higher self. It becomes the butterfly. It goes through a metamorphosis, a transformation, and no one can see that transformation. It's happening inside this cocoon, internally. And from the external, it just looks like just a cocoon there. You don't know what's happening inside that. And if it didn't, the thing is that the butterfly won't survive unless it has to break out of that cocoon. So it has to go through all this transformation, and then the struggle that it takes for the butterfly to actually break through and break out of that cocoon is what gives the butterfly the strength to fly and to use its wings to fly away. Now, if it didn't have that struggle, it would actually die. It wouldn't be able to live because it needs that struggle. It needs the pain. I just want to say that every single pain that you've felt, all the struggles, all the adversities, you can use that and channel it and turn that into your greatest strengths. Okay. Thanks a lot for listening and look forward to the next episode. Thank you.